Welcome to We Hear Her. I'm Erin Trenbeth Murray, and I'm here today with another amazing woman who is sharing her story and insights into life lessons learned. Hi, I'm Erin Trenbeth Murray with the We Hear Her podcast for women who succeed. Today, my guest is Dean Rachel Hayes with the University of Utah's David Eccles School of Business. I had the pleasure of meeting Rachel just this past year and was so thrilled to see that this strong female leader was leading the School of Business and helping charge forward the University of Utah on their mission. She has been a member just under a year, I believe, and I've had fun with her skiing. I had the pleasure recently of skiing with her and to sit in on a lecture that she provided, leadership certificate in executive ed at the School of Business. So let me tell you a little bit about Dean Hayes, Rachel, as she likes to go by. But Dr. Rachel M. Hayes is the dean, as I mentioned, for the David Eccles School of Business. She is a professor of accounting and received her MBA from the University of Colorado with a PhD for Stanford University Graduate School of Business. She has been a faculty member at the University of Utah since 2005 and has served numerous roles in the department and college, including the George and Dolores Dory Eccles Presidential Chair in Financial Reporting and Associate Dean of Faculty and Research. Prior to joining the U, Dean Hayes taught at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University and the Graduate School of Business at the University of Chicago. Her research has been published in a number of scholarly journals, including the Journal of Accounting Research, the Journal of Accounting and Economics, and the Rand Journal of Economics. So I am so excited to get to talk to the dean today. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your time with us.
I am happy to be here, Erin.
Really appreciate it. And this one's going to be fun for me because we don't know each other that well, except for that we love skiing.
Yeah.
And you may have converted to Snow Basin as possibly a go-to now that
I've been there finally.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about where are you from originally?
I grew up in New Mexico, in Los Alamos, New Mexico.
Okay.
Which is an odd place to grow up. I didn't realize.
Why is that?
Well, the only real business that was there with, I think it's still sort of true, is the National Laboratory. So Los Alamos National Lab is where originally they developed the atomic bomb, and most everyone that works there is a scientist. So grow up in this weird place where everyone's parents have PhDs. Usually it was the dad back then, but everyone's parents were, doctor of this, that, and the other.
That is really interesting, actually. What a different culture than any experience that I've had in communities that I've lived. So where did you get your love of skiing?
There in New Mexico. So I was really lucky because, and I didn't realize this at the time, but there was a ski hill that was a 15-minute drive from my house. So it was a little local area, and back then it got a lot of snow. So every weekend we would be up there both days, and it was open the other Wednesday, and so I skied all the time.
Nice. So then fast forward for me. Tell me a little bit more about your drive for your academia career, because did you always know that, you were going to be, was that something that drew to you, or did you think I'm going to be in private business?
I always thought I would be an academic, and I think that's part of growing up in Los Alamos. I just assumed from a young age that I would get a PhD in math and be a math professor. And I never wavered from that until I did a math major in college. And then after college, I spent a couple of years just hanging around and then decided, okay, PhD. And when I took the test, the GRE in math, it became clear to me that I was a math PhD in the making, and I kind of revised my plans at that point.
Economics.
So yeah, at that time, I had taken some economics in my undergrad, and I loved it, but I didn't want to have to go back and do an economics degree. I'd done a math degree, and my mother suggested, "Oh, you should go get an MBA." And so, no better idea than that. And I got an MBA. And while I was there, I realized, oh, you can get a PhD in business, and then you're basically doing economics, but applied to business topics. And so that was when my direction shifted completely, and I ended up going to get a PhD in business.
And your mom, so her background is what?
Computer science.
Computer science. And so she worked at the lab.
Yeah, so we moved there. My dad was a mathematician, and so he ended up leaving the lab when I was maybe 10. But my mother, when I was very young, she had gone back to the local community college, and she got a master's in computer science. And after my parents split up, she started working at the lab, and she initially worked part-time and then became what they called a group leader. And eventually she worked her way up to being the executive director of the Advanced Computing Laboratory at Los Alamos, which was actually pretty impressive. And I think I even knew that at the time. And but I kind of, as I reflect back, I think, oh yeah, that did have an impact. Seeing that my mom, kind of pulled this degree off later in life, and then just managed to become big boss of something.
What year about do you think that was when she was executive director?
Well, I think it was through my high school years, which now I'm going to date when I went to high school. So that would have been, the mid.
Yeah. Very similar. My mom was an assistant superintendent for a school district, Davis School District, actually. And in the mid 80s, very, it was to be an assistant superintendent of a school district that was fairly conservative, very traditional, and she was over IT and construction. I mean, those
Not traditional female fields, yes.
So you have your dad's a mathematician, your mom is a scientist, very rigorous fields. So lucky that you would have parents with that kind of influence. Do you feel like, was your plan, did you and your mom, did you have a delineated plan of achieving what you did in your career?
No, in fact, I am very much not a career plan, and I feel lucky that things have turned out as well as they have for me. So, as I said, I figured out that math was not for me. Ended up in a PhD program in accounting, and it turns out that accounting is a good field to get a PhD in because there are just never enough accounting professors. And so I stumbled into this field where I was able to get a very good job out of graduate school. So I had friends, we had a softball team, intramural softball team, and there were, physicists and computer scientists, really smart people. And it was kind of embarrassing for me that I got much better interviews. Like, a lot of them didn't get academic jobs, and it was just because I happened to be in a field where they didn't have as many, the supply of academic accountants was small. So I, as you mentioned, my first job was at Kellogg at Northwestern, the Kellogg School of Management, and then I moved to the University of Chicago, and I think one of the things about me is that when I'm doing something, I want to do it as well as I can. And so while I may not have been aspiring, I certainly never aspired to end up as a dean, but everything I do, once I'm in it, I want to do it well.
Sure.
When after college, I worked as a temp for a while, and I would do like data entry. And I'll tell you, I was the best data entry person. Every place I worked at as a temp, I always got a job offer because I'd be sitting there and I would race myself, like, how fast can I get the data entered? And so I think that is one thing about myself, and I think that is the same way, that you get a job and we just do it as best we can. So I moved here in 2005, and that was because I'd always wanted to get back to the mountains, and so came here as a associate professor, and and I have just sort of stumbled my way to the top because I work hard, try to be a reasonable person, and oftentimes in academia, it seems like there's a shortage of reasonable people. So I became a department chair, partly because there was some politics going on, and the dean at that time, Taylor Randall, was looking to make a change. And then after 7 years of that, he asked if I had any interest in being associate dean for faculty, and I answered, no, I have no interest in doing that. And he said, well, just think about it and let it percolate for a couple of months. And then it started to just feel inevitable, like, I'm going to end up doing this. And so I ended up doing that. And then when Taylor became university president, the same sort of thing happened, that I was just in the position that often becomes the interim dean to dean. So,
well, we're very lucky as a U of U alum and community member to have you in that role for sure. Even you and I spoke a little earlier, it's kind of like accidental leadership, that the forces aligned, things came to play, and there you are. You said something earlier that I wonder about your personal values. What are your values or North Star? You said my mom and I, when we decide and we commit, we're in, then we're all in. And that just kind of stirred in me that I'd love to know what drives you.
So I do think that I like to add value to whatever I'm doing. I want to feel like so that's a big one for me. I also, I don't know, I think my mother and I have talked about this because my dad was really, really smart, is really, really smart, but didn't have great interpersonal skills. And my mom says, she puts it as, well, you got your brains from your dad, but your common sense from me. And so I think, common sense, I put a high price. I put a lot of value on having common sense. I also, I guess I care about people, and so I think all of this ties together that I feel like I'm in this position where I have a responsibility to do my best and to try to make things good or better for the people. And I think I'm surrounded by people that I believe are doing the same thing for me, that, I have a team of people that are, and one of the things about this job that I kind of marvel at consistently is that I can actually delegate lots of things. Like,
We don't have to do it all.
I have to do it all. Like, I'll say, can you write this thing up? And some super smart person will write it up for
And it's grateful that you trusted them and asked them to do that.
I hope so. Yeah. Yes.
Well, I have to tell you a couple of things that have struck me as I've just got to know you a little bit. So one of the things that I noticed when we went skiing was um, this natural curiosity, and you would pause and pay attention to the landscape and the surroundings. And I saw you do that several times throughout the day. And the rest of us were all ready to go, you know. And I thought it was really beautiful to see someone whose world in the business sector, and the David Eccles School of Business has such a strong reputation with the corporate community inside and outside of Utah. So you have a lot of very business-minded, driven people around you that are likely very linear and task-driven. And it was just really impressive to me to see you pause in nature so much when we were skiing. And I don't know if you know, it just really struck me. And I thought, she is so in the moment. And that calmness, then I got to see it in a different perspective when you taught the class 2 weeks ago that I got to sit in. And what I noticed in that class was how much you were truly in the moment and listening to the students' questions. And you could see almost the wheels spinning in your mind as you pondered what they were saying to answer their question as deliberately and purposely as you could. And they may sound like completely opposite things to you, nature and that, but what it looked like to me was a person that was very calm, in the moment, reflective, and interested in and curious about her surroundings, whether it's people or the environment. Have you been told something like that before?
I don't know that I've been told that, but as you say it, I do think I am really interested in the things around me. When I have time, I take my dogs to the dog park in the morning, and I have met just such a different group of people there. And I go and I talk to, the guy that carries a gun at the dog. He needs to defend his dog, and we talk politics and all. I like things. I like learning about people, and so, I'm terribly flattered to hear you say that. But I'd like to think it actually is, that actually describes me at least in some sense.
Very genuine, for sure. And how do you think, what's the word I'm looking for, your approach or your persona, and you have an incredibly visible role as the dean. I could be wrong on this number, aren't somewhere around 30, 31, 32% of your undergraduates are female. Is that right?
That's right.
And so I want to know a little bit more about that. But what do you feel like you're kind of in not a dichotomy, but that is there opposition to how you are as a person and the world that you're representing and leading?
Yes, that's such a good question because going back to this notion of being an accidental leader, I sometimes feel like, oh, I can't be an accidental leader. I have to be like right out there, somehow be dominant, what have you. And so, yeah, I think sometimes I wonder if my approach is enough. Now, I think, I go back and forth with myself because I do think, particularly for young women, it's really valuable to see that you don't have to the aggressive personality to succeed, and that it can be enough just to be competent and attentive and to, to always strive to do your best. Now, I want to say that I am not, I, there's also been a huge amount of luck in my life. Like I fell into, a field that had high demand supply. So you can often do your very best at anything and still not end up where you want to be. So I don't want to make it sound like, oh, just work hard and everything will come to you. There's also luck. But it's, I think the other piece of this, and I'm kind of going in a different direction, but the other piece of this is that I'm following a leader business school who was is a visionary. So President Randall, now president of the university, he's a visionary, and he had ideas and and I'm a different sort of leader, and I truly believe that I'm probably the leader that the school needs right now, but I'm coming into an organization that is used to having this person that is, let's do this, like, big idea here and there. And I am much more focused on, okay, let's take all this really great stuff we have, let's make it as, better if we can, and let's make it sustainable.
Right.
And let's bring everybody up. And so I think there is this real contrast in styles. And sometimes I think, oh, I can tell this person is looking at, she's not Taylor, but I hope I'm effective.
Of course. And there, as we all know, I mean, objectively, like, if you were probably giving me advice, you'd say something to the effect of, well, there are times in business for big growth and big vision, and then it ebbs and flows. And then their savvy leader also recognizes when there's times to be methodical and to have structure and to pull together and have peace and calm for team members. And then, it ebbs and flows, but it's interesting. I mean, who wouldn't, in Taylor's shoes, filling in his shoes, wouldn't be a little bit like, but you have so many amazing gifts and talents, and all the time I hear how much people are appreciating the direction, what you're doing with the School of Business, all the programming, the students. So what advice would you give to a senior young woman that's going into college and maybe hasn't really thought about going into business, but she actually does have a natural inclination or love for entrepreneurialism? She likes to look at things on Etsy. She likes to shop at the new store that has just opened up, is fascinated with numbers or accounting, and she just hasn't made the correlation that could be a career choice for her or an academic path for her.
Okay. So, I think a big thing is just getting them the exposure to the business school. We have so many ways to bring you in, even if it's a student. So there are ways that you can kind of dip your toe in, either through taking a business class or through one of our centers. We have Lassonde Entrepreneur Institute, we have Sorensen Impact, we have Goff Leadership. So there's all these ways that even if, say, you're a dance major, English major, start to learn, what the business school is about, get exposure to, what it's like to learn about leadership. Here's a class I can take, entrepreneur, even if I'm not in the business school. And what we find is that once they kind of dip their toe in and see, hey, I can do this, I'm really interested in what I see here, then, the rest of it tends to follow.
And they have amazing Lassonde if they want to apply to live there, which is so brilliant and creative.
And so we have a new, in fall of 2024, we're anticipating, hopefully, having a building called the Epicenter. Epicenter will be similar to Lassonde, but for impact students. And so, impact through impact investing or through, through the Business Health and Prosperity Center. So I think it's going to be a really neat experience, and again, bring together students from across campus with a theme, and this theme will be impact.
Love that so much. I want to go back again. Have all that back then. Well, I want to first thank you so much for sharing your experiences and time with me today. And I also want to say that taking the class that Rachel offered through the Women's Leadership Certificate really inspired me. And for women in Women Who Succeed who may not have finance as their background, is the one thing. When I got my master's and going back and forth, I wish I would have done an MBA. No offense, College of Social Behavior Sciences. Love that one too. Should have two. But the finance for non-financial leaders, right, is one of the courses. And there's plenty in exec ed, all kinds of options for women that are out in their careers, but are feeling like they need a refresh or questions or things they think they should know that they don't know. And that would be an option, correct?
Yes. And I mean, I will say, I'm going to put in a plug here because I think I've seen this with so many of educated women friends. I of medical doctors who just, when it comes to anything, just like kind of this wall goes up, and they just decide, I can't possibly understand that. And of course they can, but for whatever reason, finance type topics are something that people, and I think much more, at least in my experience, women than men, just decide this is something I'll never understand. It's so not true. And with not much time, you can get enough understanding to realize, oh yeah, I can actually read these numbers. I can invest a little bit better, etc. So,
well, thank you. Well, that's it for today for the We Hear Her podcast for Women Who Succeed. I'm Erin Trenbeth Murray, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you for taking the time to hear her. Join our efforts and learn more about Women Who Succeed at womenwhosucceed.org.